So today we're going to do a video on the Treadhead's frequently asked questions and rules summary. I go into a lot of detail on answering these questions the best that I can. So we're going to do a video on this so that you don't have to read everything. And I'll interrupt it at some points if I need to. So here we go with my lovely AI assistant.
What kind of game is Treadheads and what does it attempt to simulate? It is a 1:1 level combined arms war game that simulates battalion level and below engagements that historically lasted up to 2 hours. It can be played with any scale miniatures or a board game with a 1-inch hex equal to 33M in a 100M mega hex. It accurately portrays 1:1 combined arms combat by synchronizing all unit ODA decision loop actions and movement by parsing the action with a player-operated game clock. Who is ODA Gurus? That's the name of our game design company composed of avid gamers with playing experience going back to the 1960s, and most of us have military experience. Most people on the team have commercial game design, publishing, and playtesting experience. The thing that we all had in common was to have a game that we could play that would relate more to our military experiences and tactics using less abstract and more historical factors and weapons platform performance. After trying various traditional game design approaches, we decided to go in a completely different direction and use the ODA loop and timing of actions to execute an order. This generates a playable time competitive game environment. What is the goal of the game design? Originally, I wanted to recreate the historical rates of fire between units in an interactive manner using traditional IGYG and activation rules with 5 to 30-second traditional game turns. After trying for 6 months, it was an utter failure. The more I tried, the more complicated the game became with new rules and exceptions. I confided with a fellow gamer and amateur game designer that to work I would need to use 1-second turns, which is ridiculous. Only a moron would try it. His response was, "Well, Steve, you seem to fit that description, so why don't you give it a try?" So I did. Rather than attempting to parse all of the action into a turn of specified time, I used the historical timing of reactions and actions to execute an order with good crews quicker and poor crews slower. Most of the historical information for low-level combat action, like crew response time, turret traverse, rate of fire/reload time is measured in seconds. Speed can also be measured in meters per second too, which will synchronize rate of fire and movement on a second-to-second basis with no additional rules or exceptions. There are no units activations, so crews are always active and observing. I had accidentally stumbled upon the ODA decision loop, which automatically makes the game time competitive, aligning with the definition the U.S. Marine Corps uses for combat. In many ways, the game resembles a military simulation on a computer where the action is paused each second, not real time, allowing players input in actions and then moving to the next turn so no traditional rules are needed. How is timing and the ODA loop used in the game? The use of 1-second time increments allows weapons platform performance to be historically and realistically modeled with a minimum of abstractions to deliver historic split-second combat results. The use of ODA loop action timing to determine how long it takes to execute an order allows players to use tactics more realistically. Player decisions, not the dice, are used to seize the initiative, stay one step ahead of his opponent, and get inside his ODA loop. Player risk-reward tactical decisions, taking chances, historical use of tactics, and crew expertise play a greater part in your success than a die roll. Players will address the speed versus accuracy dilemma in the same way real crews did during a battle. With all other factors being equal, the right decision and quicker crews will get through their loop and act first. The game is sped up by moving to the next unit action without the need for IGYG, initiative, and activation rules. What types of players is the game targeted at? We think the players who will find the game most interesting have a greater historical knowledge of combined arms operations and are interested in seeing the nuances of infantry and armor combat tactics. If you like games with data-rich technical details like the old Ukinta series, Panzer, 88, and Armor, Phoenix Command, GMT's Panzer and MBT, Tobruk, and Tractics, you'll find the Treadhead system has a lot in common. However, Treadhead's Play the Loop system is easier to play and more closely simulates the technical differences between crew training, tactics, and weapons platform performance. One feature players like is that you are not idle and waiting for your next turn to do something. What makes Treadheads different from other IGYG and unit activation game systems? Most traditional games have rules that tell players what to do, when and how often. Their orders are executed immediately with very little planning. The Treadheads time competitive system allows players to react and issue an order in the same manner using the same tactics as real crews. It uses the individual unit's ODA decision loop timing of actions based on historic weapons platform and crew performance. Good crews are quicker and poor crews are slower. Action timing determines how long it takes a unit to perform an action, which eliminates the need for activation, initiative, and IGYG rules. It also delivers historically accurate interaction of units' rate of fire. Virtual movement allows a playable simultaneous movement system that synchronizes movement and shooting on a second-to-second basis, eliminating the need for opportunity fire rules. Units are always active and observing, ready to react. As each game turn is announced, players can pause the game to react to threats, maneuver, snap shoot, or to execute an order at their act time. When an order is executed, the player immediately issues his next order and act time and records it. If a turn is announced and the game is not paused, the next turn is announced. The game is always moving intuitively and smoothly to the next player's action. What is the ODA decision loop? The ODA loop, which stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act, is a way of explaining how everyone goes through the process of reacting to stimulus. The ODA loop is a process we go through hundreds of times in a single day. It is something everyone uses, whether they know it or not, so it does not need to be taught. Colonel John Boyd, USAF, coined the term ODA loop in the 1950s. Colonel Boyd, known as the fighter pilot who changed the art of war, was an F-86 pilot and commander of a fighter group during the latter part of the Korean War. Human reaction time is defined as the time elapsing between the onset of a stimulus and the onset of a response to that stimulus. The ODA loop timing makes the game time competitive, where the quickest unit with the right tactics will seize the initiative to act/shoot first. What makes time competitiveness a better portrayal of the action in 1:1 combat? Because it allows players to compete head-to-head in a simultaneous game-time environment with more reliance on their decisions and less on the dice. Whoever can make and implement his decisions consistently faster gains a tremendous, often decisive advantage. Decision-making thus becomes a time-competitive process, and timeliness of decisions, ODA loop, becomes essential to generating tempo. Tactical Decision-Making, Marine Corps Doctrinal Publication 1, Warfighting. What is playing the loop? See page 25 for additional details. After executing their order, the player immediately in the same turn loops back to observe the result of their action and move through their loop to determine their next move or shoot order and act time. There are normally three options. 1. To move, shoot, and scoot. Place a virtual movement marker with the unit on the correct 1 to 9 segment showing the speed and direction to move. 2. To shoot again at the same target, no SA check needed. Roll a d6 with 0 to 3 modifiers to determine the 2+ shots reload action timing. and add it to the game clock to get your new act time to shoot. Use the 2+ shots row on the gun chart. 3. To engage a new target, perform a situational awareness check. If the new target is within 100 m of the previous target, it is considered engaged and ranged in /known range. Use step 2 to shoot. Then enemy units can react. After they all finish shooting and reacting, the clock starts ticking again until a player pauses it. ODA loop example. At a game clock of 2:23, you observe an enemy threat that comes into your LOS and both sides immediately react with AD6 situational awareness check. Your result is an engagement delay of 4 seconds. You don't know your opponent's result. Fog of war. When the game clock ticks to 2:27, your crew now notices the threat and immediately moves to orient to evaluate if it is a threat and your options and tactics available. You decide to fire. Fortunately, you have overwatched in the right direction and the target is within 10 degrees of your gun, so it is considered engaged and you do not have to spend additional time engaging. Next, you roll a d6 for your first shot action timing taking 9 seconds to shoot and act. Act time at 2:36, 2:27 plus 9. For the next 9 seconds per turns, the crew is assumed to be performing their duties to shoot and no further player actions are needed. Since units are always active and observing, with a potential blind spot, you can react to future enemy threats before you shoot. If you are still alive at 2:36, you act by pausing the game to shoot. After shooting, immediately while still at 2:36, loop back to observe the results you missed. You orient the new situation and options and decide to shoot again by rolling a d6 with a 2+ shots reload action timing of 7 seconds and will act, shoot again, at an act time of 2:43. We do not keep track of timing for each step in the loop, only for how long to act. What was the approach taken in designing and developing the game? Treadheads takes a different approach than other games. Each 1-second turn is used as a timing mechanism through a unit's ODA loop, much like frames in a video game. It's not like a turn in other games. Units are considered activated at all times with 360 degrees situational awareness. Turreted tanks and assault guns may have a rear 180 degrees blind spot. Just as in real life, orders are not executed immediately. It takes time. To react to a new threat, engage and fire may take 5-15 plus turns, which is historical. It is the timing through a unit's loop that determines how long, not an abstracted rule. It's mostly dependent on the weapon platform performance, crew expertise, tactical advantage, and player risk-reward tactical decisions. In order to fire when the game clock is at 3:48 that takes 13 turns, ODA loop timing, will execute/act when the clock ticks to 4:01. Overwatch in the direction the gun points is the default order with units always observing. Using the right tactics, formation, and Overwatch will allow the player to react quickly to seize the initiative to shoot first without the need for traditional IGYG, activation, and command point game rules. What are the main concepts of the game that players need to understand? Manual game clock, used to parse the second-to-second action and track the unit's act time. It synchronizes the rate of fire and movement for all units in the game. Pause the game. Players pause the game to react to enemy threats, change an order, maneuver, or shoot/execute an order. Situational awareness. How quickly you spot and react to enemy threats. Engagement delay. Reaction delay in seconds from poor situational awareness. Act time. When a unit gets through its loop to act and executes its order. Target engagement. The time taken to get your gun on the target by moving or traversing the turret. Action timing. The amount of time an action or order takes to execute. Simultaneous virtual movement. Synchronizes movement with the rate of fire as units virtually move each second. Physical movement. Units are physically advanced in the movement segment. Movement markers show the actual rate of speed per second distance, and direction of movement. Playing the loop, after an action is performed, the player immediately loops back to observe the result and issues his next order, action timing and act time. Playing the loop and determining the act time takes the player about 5 to 15 seconds of real time. Since the game is time competitive, how did you determine the action timing factors? From training and operation manuals, crew training standards, after-action reports, technical reports, and trials. The British have several War Office reports on German vehicles on tests they performed during and after World War II. Some were easy to find, like vehicle speed over different terrain, turret traverse speed, reloading, and rate of fire. Others were somewhat subjective, like quantifying a crew's situational awareness. Final values for crews engaging a target with a first shot were compared to historical accounts and training standards. We've consulted people who work at various tank museums around the world and have former tank crewmen and commanders who have helped with the research and development of the game. Some do have experience in German Panthers, T-34s, and Shermans. At the end of this paper are research links. What is action timing, and how does it make the game time competitive? Action timing is how many seconds in the unit ODA loop it will take to execute an order like shooting. It takes into account the unit's situational awareness, alertness, friction, suppression, crew training. Better crews are faster, poor crews are slower, weapons platform performance, turret traverse speed, reload time, rate of fire, fire control type, gun sights, #crew in the turret, internal communications, ranging techniques, compartment ergonomics. Also, the player's risk-reward tactical decision, based on historical tactics, to trade decreased accuracy for increased speed or decreased speed for increased accuracy. You can't have both. There is less reliance on the dice and more on the player's tactical deployment, decision, and tactics. There are no initiative rules. The player that gets through his ODA loop faster than his opponent will seize the initiative by acting before he does. Seconds count in real combat and in the game. Since the action is measured in seconds, the system delivers realistic split-second results just as real 1:1 combat does. How is fog of war portrayed? While the system is not random, it is unpredictable and creates a good fog of war. Why? Because opponents don't know the exact turn when their enemy will pause the game to execute an action/act. This creates uncertainty and suspense as each game turn is announced. Uncertainty forces players to make mistakes. The player's decision can influence the outcome by making the same risk-reward tactical decisions as crews would in combat. There is less reliance on the dice and more on decisions and tactics. What is the game clock and how does it work in the game? In a time-competitive game, you need a way to track and measure the time and the timing of events. The game clock is a player-operated play aid device, digital or analog, that tracks the action in the game on a second-to-second basis. It is not a real-time game, and the player turns are not timed like in a chess game. To start a new turn, a player or the GM advances the second hand on the clock or any other digital, analog, or paper and pencil timing method, and the new game time is announced. All units then go through the game move/shoot sequence for that turn. It can be compared to a stop-action video game. When the clock ticks to the next second, all players with an act time for the current game clock pause the game and execute their order, and then loop back to observe what just happened, orient and evaluate the new situation, and options and tactics to use. Decide on an order to issue and how long it will take to execute, action timing, and record the future act time it will execute, act. That's what we call playing the loop. If no player pauses the game to maneuver, react, or shoot, then the clock ticks to the next second/turn. The game is always moving to the next player's action while synchronizing movement and the rate of fire. Why doesn't the game use IGYG, activations, initiative, orders phase, and opportunity fire rules? None of these rules can be implemented into a time-competitive game system. Units are always active and able to react to enemy activity, so no activation rules are needed. Looping back to observe replaces an orders phase. Action timing and the ODA loop eliminate the need for initiative determination rules because all units interact with each other executing their orders based on their speed and the game clock. The game clock synchronizes the rates of movement and firing on a second-to-second basis for accurate opportunity fire. There is no need for an orders phase or command points. The game is always moving to the next action for a unit to perform without being slowed down by other rules, which speeds up the game. What is act time and how does it work? Orders are never carried out or executed immediately. It takes time. The act time is the future turn where the unit executes its order from the previous turn. The order was given. In the game, a unit's act time, amount of time to get through their loop, equals the current game clock plus the order action timing, how long it takes to execute an order. If the current game clock is showing 2:03 and an order to fire was issued with an action timing of 12 seconds, the shot is fired, act, on the act time of 2:15. Starting at 2:03, the clock ticks away second by second, and for the next 12 seconds per turns, the player's crew is going through their actions to shoot with no additional player actions other than potentially reacting to a new threat that appears. If the conditions are not good enough when your act time arrives to shoot, you can choose to hold fire and track the target. Tracking a target allows you to shoot in any future turn with no delay. How does the game portray simultaneous movement and action? As each 1-second turn is announced, there is a specific action sequence. First is virtual movement, where all moving units virtually move to the next 1 to 9 segments along their movement marker. Every 10th game turn, all moving units are physically advanced. In the board game version, units with an act time to advance into the next 33 hex do so and determine their next act time to move. Units that want to halt determine their deceleration timing, how long it will take to halt, which is 1 second per 10 kilometers per hour rounded up, and the act time to halt. Movement may mean a moving target left the los of the shooter before he could shoot. Movement may create a new los that players can react to because units are always active and observing, just as they would in real combat. After movement, any number of units with an act time to shoot do so and play the loop. If no units pause the clock, it immediately ticks to the next second. The game progresses from second to second until a player pauses the game to act, react, or the next admin phase. Can you describe the overall gameplay and action sequence within a 1-second turn? Visualize a battle being played out like a movie, but with a stop action second to second. As the clock ticks to the next 1-second turn, all moving units, virtually not manually moved by the player, move to the next 1 to 9 segment on their movement marker and can maneuver. This simulates real-time proportional speed movement. Next, check for any new mutual los that is created from the movement that all units can react to and change order. Moving units that are targeted may have moved out of the shooter's los. Next, all artillery and mortar rounds scheduled impact. Action timing is their time of flight, and the results are determined. Next, all units with an act time to shoot do so. They also have the option to hold fire and track their target to shoot in any later turn with no additional delay. Determine hit/miss, penetration, and damage. All enemy units with a los to the shooting can react and change order. Play the loop. All acting units then loop back to observe and notice the results. They then consider the results, options, and tactics, orient, for their next action. Then he decides to shoot or move, decide, and how long it will take to act, action timing. He adds his new action, timing to the game clock to get his act time, act, records it, and waits for the game clock to get to his next act time to shoot/act. Every 10th game turn, all players simultaneously move all units with a movement marker to the end of their marker and place it to show the speed and direction for the next 10 seconds per turns. Every 10th turn is an administrative turn where various actions like radio communications, rallying, bailing out, fires/explosions, smoke dissipation, small arms fire results, and other actions are resolved more abstractly without using action timing for them. What is the player doing and what actions are they performing in the game? As each 1-second game turn is sequentially announced, players can pause the game to react to enemy activity or new los from movement, maneuver, or perform their action and immediately play the loop to decide on their next action by determining their action timing and the future act time, current game time plus action timing. This means the player must pay attention to each turn as the action unfolds second to second, somewhat like a slow-motion video game. Player-generated delay. If a player misses a unit's act time but notices it 3 or 4 seconds later, they can execute the action now, not as it was 3 to 4 turns before. If he was knocked out in the last couple of turns, too bad. The unit is dead. It's what we call a player-generated delay. When a new los is established, it should be announced and agreed on by both sides, having the option to react to the threat with a situational awareness check, including changing the current order. Players need to pay attention to each turn. How many vehicles or units can a new player operate, and how do they shoot and move? I normally start players with 4 vehicles, which they don't seem to have a problem with. I have seen new players controlling up to 12 once they got the hang of the ODA loop concept and the data card. The player's actions are observing, engaging a target, shooting, or moving. To move, place a movement marker showing the speed and direction of movement. Virtual movement handles the second-to-second movement. Each turn, all moving units can turn or pivot up to the amount listed on the data card. Halting involves decelerating first. To shoot, first perform a situational awareness check. Then, after any engagement delay, engage the target each turn by turning, pivoting, or traversing your turret until the gun is on the target. The exception is Overwatch or known range. Then, determine the first shot action timing and act time. How do you use historical tactics, action timing, and risk-reward tactical decisions? Action timing gives a better portrayal of a gun's historical rate of fire in combat. It addresses the age-old decision crews needed to make about speed versus accuracy. Since the game is time competitive, the players will decide to balance performance/accuracy with speed/timing to get through their ODA loop to act before their opponent. When a player is determining his action timing to shoot, he's also thinking about what his opponent is doing too. Poor crews will take longer to perform actions than good crews. Tanks with 1 or 2-man turrets are less effective because of poor ergonomics and overload crews with tasks. Ammo over 100 millimeters normally comes in 2 parts, the propellant and the shell. This means reloading can take 20 to 25 seconds, and most medium tanks could get off 2 to 3 rounds before the larger gun can reload and fire once. What historical tactics are used and how are they portrayed? Snapshot enables the player to trade decreased accuracy for increased speed. This will enable better crews and high velocity, more accurate guns to trade accuracy for speed and still be accurate enough to hit their target. Poor crews and guns with a slow rate of fire will be at a disadvantage. Using Overwatch with a target in your front 10 degrees arc and known range, target within 100 m of the last target, will automatically engage the target for quicker initiative. A rangefinder takes 6 more turns, but gives better first shot accuracy. A range marker has a pre-measured spot for range, making a first shot more accurate. Precision aim will allow the player to modify his D20 hit location die roll plus or -4. Spending more time aiming to target a weak spot, avoid a ricochet, or get a critical hit. However, there is a maximum range limitation and the shooter and target must be static. A snapshot negates the use of precision aim and rangefinders. How much action is there in a game? We'll define action as rolling the dice, reacting, decision-making, moving, and shooting. Treadheads scenarios replay engagements that historically took less than an hour. A typical game might be 120-300 plus 1 second turns in a 2 to 3 hour real-time game. Using time compression, you can get through any number of turns. A tank moving at 25 kilometers per hour moves at 7 meters per second/turn, turning 70 m every 10 seconds. In miniatures 10mm scale game using 1 inch equals 25 m, a vehicle can cover a 6-foot table in about 150 turns, about 2.5 minutes of game time, with the player having physically moved it 30 to 40 times. Most guns can fire every 5 to 20 seconds, depending on how often a new target is engaged, as that takes additional time. Tanks that survive a battle normally fire 10 plus times during a 2 to 3 hour game. Units are always active and can react at any time to threats. How are the differences in crew performance portrayed? The game reflects differences in crew experience and training by allowing better crews to perform actions like laying the gun for the first shot, aim times, and reload times more quickly than poor crews. The timing differences for crew types generally give an ace crew a 4 to 6 second advantage over a poor crew. This timing method helps recreate the ODA decision loop and allows better trained crews to perform actions first and get inside their opponent's loop and thus seize the initiative without additional die roll or initiative rules. What knowledge do I need to play the game? The more you know about historic World War II tank and infantry warfare, tactics, and gunnery, the quicker you'll assimilate the game. The rules, terms, and nomenclature have their basis in real manuals, doctrines, and after-action reports. Unfortunately, your expertise and experience with other game systems won't help much, as there are many new concepts. The data cards and play aids guide the player through his actions. Once a player understands the difference of turn in a time-competitive game using ODA loop timing, the game system becomes second nature. Players also need to get used to the idea that all of their units are active and always observing to react to enemy action the second it occurs. Stay off your phone. How does the game model the fog of war? The act time to execute an order is kept secret between opposing players. As the game clock ticks to the next second, no one knows who is going to pause the game. This pushes players to make risk-reward tactical decisions to trade decreased accuracy for increased speed with a greater chance of missing. There are enough action timing variables to make it difficult to predict the exact second an opponent will shoot. Being off by 1 second can mean the difference between life and death. In a large battle, there is suspense and split-second combat results as each second ticks off and no one knows who is going to shoot next. How would I make house rules? Any action or tactic will take a certain amount of time to execute. The game system is ideal for making your own house rules by changing the action timing values of the actions. That means any historical trait or special rule you've seen in other games can be converted by determining the amount of time it takes and the result or benefit. Better accuracy is modified by lesser dispersion of the round and not hit die roll modifiers as in most games. An accuracy penalty would be using the dispersion value at a longer target range. Vehicle crew members can fight with the same weapons as infantry using the same game system. You can use your favorite vehicles from video games or any other game, and their gun values too. You can replace the gunfire, hit location, damage, and small arms rules with whatever ones you like. You'll just have to use the gun's rate of fire and action timing and movement as it is used in the game. The game seems unrealistic because the crews are always doing exactly what you order them. Let's examine that. Crews will do what is requested. What matters is how quick they are, and will enemy action and suppression force them to take longer or kill them before executing the order. Speed counts. Most games use some type of activation rule, and the crew executes their order immediately when activated. There is no planning involved, and you have perfect intel when you perform your action. That does not happen on the battlefield. Treadhead's use of action timing forces the player to issue an order that executes in the next 5 to 15 seconds and is not certain of what will happen between the time of issuing and executing an order. Few games can do this. Many things can happen in 5 to 15 seconds on a fluid battlefield, including being killed or forced to change your order. New threats can appear at any second. His target may be knocked out by someone else and be forced to engage a new target. It may move out of his los before he shoots. He may be hit, etc. Crews will attempt to carry out an order when they receive it, but you are not sure exactly when it will happen as there are potential snafus and delays. A hit not knocking out the tank could cause a morale check from armor spalling, concussion, and light wounds that may extend the unit's current act time. Unexpected enemy actions and player mistakes keep everyone guessing. No action or order is 100% guaranteed, as there is a 5% chance of a snafu that will affect the current or next shot. In the end, your use of risk-reward decisions will mean victory or defeat. You can be fast or accurate, but not both. Playing the loop forces players to use their real skill and decisions in a head-to-head time competitive game environment, with less reliance on the dice and more on the player's historical decisions. Players with greater historical knowledge will have a slight advantage. New players will increase their historical knowledge as they play the game. Knowledge of IGYG games will not help very much. Does the game require record-keeping and tracking information? Yes, there is some off-board record-keeping, and it depends on the level of detail the player wants to use. We have various play aids for record-keeping. For each unit, at the minimum, you need to track the future game time a unit will have their act time to execute their order and the fire control type, first shot or 2+ shots. Players can do that on a small index card for 6 to 8 vehicles. The crew variables are defined in such a way that there are no modifiers for veteran crews. If all crews are veterans in the game, that is one less item to track. You could also track ammo types: AP, AP-SAR, ABDS, HE, Smoke, WP. The game needs models with movable turrets or chits to point at the target being shot at. If tracking a vehicle's unbuttoned/buttoned-up status, it can be done on the model, counter, or off-board. The record-keeping has not been a burden on new players, but the play testers also need some way to identify the units. Does the playing surface get cluttered with information markers? The only markers on the playing surface are the movement markers showing the distance moved, direction, and speed. Players can also use smoke and bailout markers too. If the turrets do not move, you'll need a marker for that. There are markers to determine the posture, suppressed, hunkered down, improved position of an infantry unit, guns, and heavy weapons. Fewer markers mean a more realistic fog of war. Playing the loop using the OODA loop and action sequence. How does the OODA loop time competitive system differ from other game sequences? The biggest difference is that all units are considered active and observing, just as in real combat. This allows them to respond to enemy activity the second it occurs and stop the clock to determine how to respond to it. However, they may not be able to go into action right away because of an engagement delay caused by suppression, friction, poor situational awareness, poor crew training, or a blind spot. Orders take time to execute. While your crew is performing their duties to act/shoot, waiting for the game clock to come to your act time, you can react to a new and more dangerous threat by canceling the order to shoot and issuing a new order. In most IGYG or unit activation game rules, One side is moving or shooting, and the other side is normally inactive or limited in the ability to react because of the limitations of the rules. In some game rules, units take turns activating to move or shoot. In games with multiple players, it may be 10+ minutes a player needs to wait before it is their turn to do something. Treadheads is very much like an IGYG game, but the action is parsed based on the unit's act time. Immediately after act, the player loops back to determine his next action and act time. There is no IGYG move/shoot or orders phase. How do players use the ODA loop in the game? Just as they do in real life. Keep in mind that the ODA loop is what happens between the onset of a stimulus and the onset of a reaction to that stimulus, and how we attempt to solve a problem. First, we observe and keep in mind that although we process approximately 80% of the information we receive with our sense of sight, we can and do make observations with our other senses. You might hear a gunshot and not see the person who fired it. Once you look and see the source of the gunfire, you are now in the orient stage of the process. In the orient stage, you are now focusing your attention on what you have just observed and what your options and tactics are to respond to the threat, normally shoot or move. The next step is to decide which order to issue and with any associated risk rewards and chance taking. The commander is going to issue an order to his crew/unit based on weighing different factors. However, orders are not executed immediately. It takes time, action timing. The player records the future act time the order will execute, act. When the game clock ticks to your act time, you stop the clock to pause the game and execute your order. After you act, you immediately go back to observe and do it all over again, issuing a new move or shoot order. The explanation is more complicated than actually doing it. What are the historical options, orders, and tactics real crews had that are used in the game? Overwatch. This is the default order with no restrictions as in other games. Units are always observing with their best situational awareness, being in the direction the gun or turret is pointing at. Proper Overwatch can counter the reverse slope defense tactic. Targets with 10 degrees of your gun are automatically engaged. Target engagement. This is the first step to shoot. It involves maneuvering/pivoting and/or traversing the gun to get it on target. If a target is in your 10 degrees frontal arc Overwatch, it is automatically engaged, giving you a timing advantage to shoot first. Vehicles without a turret must turn or pivot to engage a new target. Move. Place a virtual movement marker showing the speed and direction to move with the unit on the 1 to 9 segment matching the current game time. It will be a moving target starting the next turn. No SA check. Shoot and scoot. Immediately after shooting, place a virtual movement marker as above. No SA check. Angle armor. Tanks only when engaging the new target. Angle your hull 20 degrees to 60 degrees to the target and then traverse the gun to the target. It takes a few seconds longer but increases the armor strength of the front and side hull and increases the ricochet chance too. This can be done while moving for halt fire. Halt. Determine deceleration delay time and act time to halt. Maneuver to face the target. Angle armor for better protection while moving before halting. After halting, perform halt fire. First shot action timing. Halt fire. Engage the target while moving. Decelerate to halt and use first shot action timing to shoot. Hold fire and track. At your act time to shoot, hold fire and continue to track the target, keeping it in your LOS and field of fire to shoot in any later turn. No delay. There is no blind spot when using this tactic. Reverse slope defense. Start turret down, engage the target, move to hold down to shoot. Reverse back to turret down while reloading to move up and shoot again, or relocate to a new firing position. The shooter will be a hold down target for 3 to 5 seconds before it disappears back to turret down to reload and observe. Hold down. Moving to a hold down position can protect the hull from being hit. Smoke, or WP shell, can obscure you by blocking the enemy LOS or an accuracy penalty for partial smoke. Concealed target. The maximum spotting range is 200 m. Automatically spotted if shooting or moving. Side scrape. Peeking behind a vertical obstruction protects half of your vehicle. Hits on odd numbers only. Moving fire allows the unit to fire while moving. The greater the speed, the greater the accuracy penalty. Moving fire always uses the first shot accuracy row on the gun chart. Rangefinder. For a first shot plus 6 seconds, but uses the more accurate 2 plus shots row on the gun chart. Known range / ranged in. New targets plus / -100 m from the last target use the 2 plus shot row on the gun chart. Range marker, a location that has the range pre-measured, ranged in. Use the 2 plus shots on the gun chart. Snapshot. This is a risk-reward tactic which allows the player to fire 1+ seconds sooner than his act time, but with a plus 100 m accuracy penalty / seconds sooner. Snapshots negate the rangefinder and precision aim. Precision aim allows the shooting player to modify the D20 hit location roll plus or -4 to target a weak spot, avoid a ricochet chance, hold down and side scrape protection, or on a 20+ get a critical hit. Blind spot. Turreted tanks and vehicles, with an act time to shoot, are blind in their rear 180 degrees aspect because they are too busy shooting. Once a unit is unengaged, target is on fire or brewed up, they no longer have a blind spot. Hold fire and track, open tops, gun crews, and infantry never have a blind spot. What are some of the advantages of the Treadheads ODA loop game system? One advantage is that you don't need to teach it to the players as it comes naturally. They just need to get used to using it and not overcomplicate it. Another big advantage, especially in larger games, is the way virtual movement simulates simultaneous movement. It speeds up the game because rather than moving each vehicle less than an inch each turn, it virtually moves to the next segment on the movement marker. On each 10th turn, all moving units are simultaneously advanced to the end of the marker, and the marker is placed to show the new direction and speed for the next 10 turns. This means all players are moving up their units at the same time rather than one at a time while everyone else watches and waits. Since the movement markers show the correct rate of speed, the movement is pre-measured, eliminating the need to measure or count movement points or fractions. The vehicle icons at each segment on the movement marker are drawn to scale for games with 1 inch equals 25 m, which will give more realistic results against artillery templates and LOS determination. Another advantage is that the movement markers give an accurate real-time impression of how the game will flow, and players can get a more realistic idea of where units will be in the future if they continue at their current rate of movement. The action timing of shooting delivers more realistic rates of fire and accurately models opportunity fire by synchronizing the rate of fire and movement rate on a second-to-second basis. It does all of this with fewer rules than most games too. Optional rules. Players don't need to use every rule. Here are some that can be optional or left out: ricochet chance, shot trap, precision aim, snapshot, rangefinder, crew types, blind spots, round time of flight, snafus, bogged down chance, flotation, and damage level. Players can substitute their gunnery, armor, penetration, hit location, and vehicle damage system, but must still use the action timing for first and 2+ shots and virtual movement markers and system. What is the sequence of actions for each 1-second turn? The game is always moving to the next act time for a unit to perform like a continuous repetitive loop. Units within LOS to any movement, turret traverse, or pivoting can pause the game to react with a situational awareness check, allowing them to issue a new order or change their current order. All actions begin with a situational awareness check. After any engagement delay, the game can be paused and an order can be issued. Step 1. Virtual movement with units moving to their next 0 to 9 segment on their marker, matching the game turn. Players pause the game to maneuver. Every 10th turn the units are physically moved and the movement marker is repositioned. Step 2. New target engagement. Players pause the game to turn, pivot, or traverse their gun to the target. Enemy units can pause the game to react. Step 3. Players pause the game to shoot, hold fire, and track their targets. Indirect fire rounds land and determine the damage. Players place small arms fire markers on their targets. Step 4. Players that executed an order play the loop, determine their next order and act time. Enemy units can react with a situational awareness check, then restart the game. All of the options and restrictions for Play the Loop are listed for the player to determine his next order, action timing, and new act time. This is one of the most important aspects of the game and what makes it different than IGYG games with an orders phase or unit activations. Step 5. Every 10th turn is an administrative phase where actions that are not timed are performed. This includes rally, communication success, smoke dissipation, small arms fire results, recovery from snafu, and bogged down. QR codes. The data cards and play aids will have a QR code that can be activated by your cell phone. It gives a quick run through the sequence of actions and other rules and videos that players can use mid-game rather than looking up rules. Action timing and act times. What are some of the factors and details involved in determining the action timing for a unit? There are a variety of sources we've used. There is excellent historical documentation on training standards, weapons platform performance for turret traverse speed, reload time, and after-action reports. I've been fortunate to have former tank crewmen with experience on various World War II vehicles along with docents from various tank museums in the US, England, Germany, and Russia. The British have done excellent studies on German tanks to document performance. Since these actions are measured in seconds, they fit easily into the Treadhead's time competitive game system. Can the enemy predict act times? To some extent, yes. They can be somewhat predicted in real combat too. For each action, there is normally a die roll to make the timing somewhat variable. However, several variables will make timing very difficult to predict exactly. Crew training should be kept secret, and each type uses different timing values. Risk-reward tactical decisions by the player will also vary in action times. Can units change their orders before their act time? Yes. While waiting for your act time to be announced, the second a more dangerous threat comes into LOS, you can perform a situational awareness check to respond by aborting firing and issuing a new order. Remember, there are no spotting or order phases. All units are active. The sooner he can get through an act time, the sooner he can start another one to move or fire. However, if you have poor situational awareness that generates an engagement delay, the delay may not enable you to act in time. The first clue of a threat would be an armor-piercing round bouncing around the inside of your tank. How is the game interactive without the need for normal initiative or activation rules? By having units always active to observe to react to new threats and being time competitive. This simulates opportunity fire, tank-tank shootout, where the speed of engagement and good tactical deployment, unbuttoned and Overwatch, will be the key to getting off that first shot. No additional or special rules, die rolls or exceptions are needed. The action timing system keeps all players active as the clock ticks away. Since players can react and change orders in any turn, all units interact with each other in real game time and the players do not have to wait for their turn to move, shoot, or activate as in most games. When you get down to it, all action in a 1:1 scale game comes down to the timing of actions and events using small timing increments, seconds, and not minutes. Randomness plays only a small but sometimes important part. Chaos is generated in the game by unexpected engagement delays, snafus, wrong risk-reward tactical decision choices, limited intelligence, and player mistakes. How historically accurate are action timing factors in the game? The target engagement and gunnery system uses historical turret traverse rates and reloads/rates of fire without making abstractions or impacting playability. This allows a single vehicle to historically engage from 3 to 5 targets in 1 minute of game time, 60 turns, without the use of special rules or abstract rates of fire. Action timing to shoot is taken from training manuals, after-action reports, and qualification tests. It includes engaging the target, estimating the range, aiming, and firing. How quickly multiple targets can be engaged is dependent on your crew's expertise, tactics, and weapons platform performance. The details are accurately portrayed while being transparent to the player. However, the more historical knowledge of the era, the easier and more enjoyable the game will be. Reading the manuals will help too. With act times not being known by opponents, a natural and realistic fog of war is created with suspense. As the clock ticks to the next second, no one knows who will shoot next or when. Split-second combat results are common. Why use 1 second turn increments for timing? In small unit tactical and skirmish warfare, it is seconds that count at the individual vehicle and fire team level. Even fractions of a second can mean the difference between life and death. That's why the game uses 1 second time slices to determine the interaction between units and sync everyone to the same turn. This is much like video games that use frame rates. It's also why we can use historical data for weapons and vehicles. Treadheads portrays a level of warfare that allows better crews to perform more actions in the same amount of time than poor crews. This allows the player to get inside his opponent's decision loop without using rule abstractions, die roll modifiers, command activations, interrupts, or random actions. Good crews on a poor weapons platform can outperform poor crews on a better weapon platform. What happens if I miss or forget my act time to shoot? That is what we call a player-generated delay. Players always need to pay attention to each turn just like real crews need to keep their situational awareness high. Example, at a game time of 2:35, a player realized he forgot to shoot at 2:32. There is no going back. It's the same as an engagement or suppression delay rule. If he is still alive, he can fire at 2:35 and then play the loop normally. However, if he was knocked out at 2:33 or 2:34, too bad, you're dead. You snooze, you lose. Situational awareness, spotting and reaction. How is battlefield situational awareness portrayed? See the engagement play aids on page 16. The central concept of the game is to detect and engage an enemy threat promptly using a unit's tactical advantage / overwatch, crew expertise, weapons platform performance, turret traverse, pivot rate, and the player's risk-reward decisions. Tactics to gain the initiative. This will allow you to get through your loop tact before your opponent. A situational awareness check replaces spotting and reaction used in traditional games. It can result in a unit acting right away or generate an engagement delay. An engagement delay is deadly and gives your opponent the initiative. The best way to determine this is to visualize exactly what actions and decisions a tank commander and crew must go through when they detect and react to an enemy threat. The first thing is the unit's overall 360-degree situational awareness. They can react at any turn. That takes into account if the tank commander is unbuttoned, unengaged, or engaged with a blind spot and the direction the gun is facing, Overwatch. To react to a threat in your LOS involves a D20 die roll with a few modifiers to a result. Good crews observe and react more quickly than poor crews. Threats in your flank and rear take longer, reacting while moving takes longer, and moving targets is easier. The result of the D20 situational awareness check is called an engagement delay, which can be from 1-15 plus turns. During the engagement delay, the unit must continue its current action before it can issue a new order because it has not detected the threat, some abstraction involved. After the delay, the crew now notices the threat, and the tank commander puts his crew into action by issuing a new order to move or shoot. To move, place a movement marker. To shoot, determine the action timing, risk-reward decisions for your act time, and hope nothing bad happens until then. You can always use a snapshot for your first shot at a target to shoot earlier with an accuracy penalty. How does spotting work in the game? There is no spotting phase like in most games. Just as in real combat, crews are always active and observing. This means they can react immediately with a situational awareness check to movement, shooting, and turret traverse. Enemy activity in the LOS. Check for blind spots and concealed targets. What is the mutual line of sight reaction? Players should agree when a new LOS is created and a situational awareness check is performed simultaneously by both sides. It normally involves rolling 1 to 3d6s with 0 to 3 modifiers, which can include buttoned up / unbuttoned status, suppression, crew training, movement, shooting, smoke and haze, optics, and the target threat direction to the gun / turret. The variables and unknowns of the situational awareness check increase the fog of war effect and initiative. Maneuvering, flanking, and suppressing your enemy will reduce his situational awareness to generate an engagement delay to surprise him and shoot first. How do units react to a new LOS created from movement? As each 1-second turn is announced, moving units advance to the next time segment on their movement markers. This movement can generate a new mutual LOS that all players can react to with a situational awareness check. But remember, reacting does not mean going into action right away. Reacting with a situational awareness check can mean the crew going into action right away to move or determine the future time they'll shoot. A moving unit may move out of the LOS before an enemy unit could shoot at it. How does a suppression delay differ from an engagement delay? An engagement delay is from poor crew situational awareness for vehicles, crew-served weapons, and infantry. A suppression delay is from small arms fire and high explosives against crew-served weapons and infantry, which always generates a suppression delay, increasing their action timing x2. An engagement or suppression delay does not keep a unit from reacting to a new threat. Suppression delays are cumulative, and under heavy fire, a unit may be forced to withdraw from LOS or hunker down. Why do I need to react with a situational awareness? Essay. Check to engage a new target. Not everything goes as planned in the middle of a battle. A unit's observation and situational awareness are not perfect when crews are busy. The tank commander is coordinating the crew's actions and watching for the enemy. Incoming rounds are distracting, and battlefield smoke and haze could be obscuring threats. The enemy threat may be from the right, but the commander is looking to the left. The situational awareness check represents a potential delay in noticing danger, communicating it to your crew, and getting them to go into action. You need to make a situational awareness check every time you engage a new target or attempt to react to a threat with a mutual close reaction. You don't need to make an SA check if engaging the same target with multiple consecutive shots, as you are already aware of him and engaged. How does Overwatch, the default order, work without having special Overwatch or order rules? The game does not need special rules or restrictions for Overwatch, since all units are assumed to be observing, just as they would in real combat. If an enemy threat is in your gun 10 degrees arc, it is considered engaged as a target after a situational awareness check. Crews do not search specific sectors. We do not designate the direction the tank commander is looking. Your best situational awareness and best chance to rapidly detect enemy threats is in the direction your gun is pointing, not the hull. Detecting enemy activity to your flanks or rear may involve an engagement delay, especially if you are buttoned up, which can be deadly. The best tactic is to point your gun in the direction you may expect the enemy to appear. Certain formations will allow individual vehicles to cover the front and flanks while moving. Generally, a tank should have its turret pointed in the direction it is moving depending on the formation the unit is in. Does a unit need to make a situational awareness check each turn to keep a target in sight? No, once a target is engaged and shot at, it does not need another situational awareness check to maintain contact. Consider being locked on to the target if it is in your LOS and field of view. What happens if a threat moves out of my LOS during an engagement delay? That would mean that you never actually saw it. You cannot re-engage an enemy unit, make a radio communication to warn other units until the engagement delay is over. During a delay, you continue executing your current order, moving and can react to other enemy threats in your LOS. If a target leaves your LOS, you can immediately react, move, or issue a new order. Units can pass each other without being detected. On rare occasions in dense terrain, moving enemy units may make a mutual LOS reaction and have an engagement delay long enough to allow both of them to be out of the LOS by the time the engagement delay is over. They miss each other. Example, you performed a situational awareness check at 4:23 with a result of an engagement delay of 5 seconds. In that case, you do not notice or spot the unit to take action until 4:28. In 5 seconds, a unit moving at 25 kilometers per hour could move about 35 m and be out of the LOS. If a unit is going to move out of your LOS before your act time to shoot, use a snapshot. Exception, ranged in tactic. If you engage a new target within 100 m of the last target, it is already engaged by the gunner and in his gun sight field of view and is ranged in known range. After a situational awareness check, roll a d6 for 2+ shots reload action timing for the act time to shoot, and use the 2+ shots accuracy row on the gun chart when shooting, not the first shot. This is why you should keep your units spaced 100 m plus apart. What is a blind spot and how does it work? Turreted tanks and assault guns have a blind spot in their rear 180 degrees arc when engaged and shooting at a target, act time, and are more susceptible to tunnel vision. This is because tanks and assault guns have poor vision to their flanks and rear, and while shooting, the crew is occupied and busy engaging and observing their target to their front. As soon as a firing unit disengages, ceases firing at the current target, it again has a 360 degrees situational awareness and can react to new threats with a situational awareness check. Anti-tank guns, open-top vehicles, infantry, and artillery never have a blind spot because their crew can observe all around them, but they can be surprised from their flank and rear from an engagement delay. What is the maximum range I can detect a target? Normally, gunfire is detected out to a maximum range in the game. Static concealed units that are outside the 200 m maximum spotting range can only be spotted when firing or moving/pivoting. When a concealed unit is spotted, a marked target marker is put on it. Spotted concealed units have a plus 200 accuracy penalty when being fired at because you are firing at muzzle flashes, not a fully defined target. Situational awareness chart and example. Players react to an enemy activity like shooting, turret traverse, pivoting, or moving the second it occurs with a situational awareness check. If the result is equals 0, the activity is noticed immediately and the unit can decide to shoot or move. If the result is 0, that is the number of turns of an engagement delay before the action is noticed. Each unit has a customized line on the chart that considers their ability to observe, optics, crew members, hashtag crew in a turret, suspension type, and buttoned-up observation. Situational awareness check. Remember, all units are active and observing. This allows a unit to react with a situational awareness check. Using the engagement play aid. Roll 1 to 3d6s for crew exposure and friendly reacting and observing unit and the enemy threat modifiers. A positive modifier means it is taking longer to spot and react. A negative modifier decreases the amount of time. Concealed targets. A static concealed unit cannot be spotted beyond its maximum spotting range, 200 m, unless it shoots, pivots, or moves. Once spotted, a marked target marker is placed on it with a plus 200 accuracy penalty because you are shooting at muzzle flashes. Concealed units, especially anti-tank guns, normally use the hold fire and track tactic, allowing them to engage a target at long range and wait for it to get closer, come within a range marker, halt, or present a flank shot for an ambush. Infantry tank hunter teams stay hunkered down and pop up when the target can ideally be engaged. Situational awareness check, result, and engagement delays. Result equals 0. The unit can immediately and without delay change issue a move or shoot order. Result 0. That is the number of seconds of an engagement delay before the unit notices the threat and can have its crew go into action. Record the act time that many seconds further on the turn track. A delay of 5 seconds at game time 8:07, record 8:12 on the turn track. Delays are deadly and give an initiative advantage to your opponent. Reacting and observing unit timing modifiers. Blind spot non-open tops vehicles if the unit reacting is currently engaged, has an act time to shoot. It cannot react to a threat outside of the 180 degrees blind arc listed. Use the play aid and turret to measure the arc, not the hull. Exception: if a unit is hit in the blind spot and the round ricochets, the target can react with a situational awareness check using the frontal arc on the play aid. As soon as it disengages from a target, it no longer has a blind spot. Crew delay. Crew-served weapons and guns can have a delay and cannot react or shoot from high explosive round results. Open-top vehicles and gun crews. They have no blind spot and roll a d6+2 for all aspects. Scissors binoculars. They can be used when buttoned up. They have a higher magnification, giving them a -2 advantage in reacting only in the frontal 20-degree arc when static. They are ineffective when moving. Crew training. Modify for ace or poor crew. There are no modifiers for veteran crews. Ace crews are quicker and poor crews are slower when performing actions like reacting, shooting, and reloading. 1 or 2-man turret. 2 or 3-man turrets that lose a commander, gunner, or loader take longer to react. Moving fire can only be performed on flat terrain. The faster a unit moves, the greater the accuracy penalty will be. Vehicles with torsion bar suspension are more stable. Some allied vehicles have a gun stabilizer that can only be used by ace and veteran crews. Moving fire always uses the first shot accuracy row on the gun chart. Engagement play aid. The game uses the engagement play aid to the left to make it easier for players to determine angles, blind spots, weapons firing arcs, and defensive armor aspects. The 20 degrees arc is the blind arc for poor crews, bow machine guns, and vehicles with a restricted field of fire like assault guns and bipod machine guns. The 60 degrees arc is the blind spot for veteran and ace crews. It is also the field of fire for anti-tank guns, artillery, tripod-mounted infantry weapons, and machine guns. Turret traverse and hull pivot. Place the play aid over the vehicle with the arrow facing in the direction of the hull, not the turret. Always round up. Turreted vehicles. Angling armor for the best protection and ricochet chance. First, pivot or move so the target is in the 20 to 60 degrees aspect. Then traverse the turret/gun to face directly at the target. That will determine how long it will take for your action timing. The far left side is for measuring distances for moving and ranges for shooting up to 300 m, and the maximum distance most concealed units can be spotted at is 200 m. It also shows the distance a unit will move in a 10-second movement segment and can be used to determine the degrees of turning. This scale is set up for 1 inch equals 25 m. Limited intelligence and fog of war. Units that have a LOS to the enemy should use the movement markers for movement. However, units that the enemy does not have a LOS can use a generic counter where the player will move every movement segment using the scale on the left side of the aid. Armor aspects. The 4 different colored aspects match the target aspects when being shot at. The 20 degrees to 60 degrees arc will provide the best protection by increasing the frontal and side armor and increasing the chances of a ricochet. Movement, pivoting, and turning. Use the play aid to determine the number of degrees when maneuvering and to measure ranges. All turret traverse, turning, and pivoting are measured in degrees per second rounded up. The unit can turn or traverse the turret in a turn, not both. Measuring true target range. If the range is static or opening, round up to the next 100 m. If the range is closing, round down to the next lower 100 m. When measuring ranges, measure to the 1 to 9 segment the moving unit is on and the front center of the model hull if the unit is static. Gunnery and fire control. How do the gunnery rules work? The game uses a ballistics formula to determine how accurate a gun will be using 100 m range increments hit hashtag. There are no player calculations needed. An accuracy penalty will use a further range and a bonus will use a lower range band. When a unit is shooting, the player rolls a d20, no die roll modifiers. The game includes armor piercing, APCR, APDS, heat, white phosphorus, canister, and high explosive rounds. What are the types of historic fire control used in the game? I used the US M60 and Sherman tank manual for the data with help from a former tank crewman. The 2 types of fire control are first shot aim time, ranging, and 2+ shots reload, bracketing. The first shot at a target involves spending the most time estimating the range and aiming. At ranges over 1 second time of flight, 700 m, 1000 m, the expectations of a hit on a first shot can be less than 50%. 2+ shots action timing, reloading, at the target involve follow-up shots at the same target with better accuracy. Stop the clock and shoot when the game clock gets to your act time. Follow steps 1 to 8 in sequence. Players can hold fire and track their targets to shoot in any future turn with no delay. Step 1. Measure true target range. The true target range is the actual range from the shooter to the target. For static units, measure from the front of the hull. For moving targets, measure to the 1 to 9 movement segment that the moving unit occupies. If both targets are static or the range is opening round up 100 m, 750 m equals 800 m. If the range is closing round down 100 m, 750 m equals 700 m. The max range for coaxial MG is 1200 m and bow MG 600 m. Step 2. Determine the accuracy range. The accuracy range is most likely going to be different than the true range. The true target range is modified in +/-100 m increments. Target size. Smaller targets are harder to hit, so have a +x00 modifier. Larger targets are easier to hit, so have a x00 modifier. Side 60 to 120 degrees aspect. Side shot gives a larger target area, making it easier to hit. Partial smoke. This can also include firing through fog or haze. Mark target. This is a concealed target that has been spotted, but is still harder to hit. Moving target. Index the target speed and aspect to get the +x00 accuracy penalty. Crew type. -100 for ace crews, +200 for poor crew. Snapshot/second sooner, +100 for each second shooting before your recorded act time. He and APCR rounds. These are slightly less accurate, so they have a +300 accuracy penalty. He rounds that missed can still cause damage. Moving shooter. Only ace and veteran crews can fire on the move on flat ground. The first entry under the speed is the accuracy penalty if using a gun stabilizer. The second entry is with no gun stabilizer. Step 3. Determine snafu. Not every order was executed perfectly. Many unexpected factors can interfere with success. The target player rolls a d20 with no modifiers. If the result is a 1/5% chance, a snafu has occurred. The shooting player rolls a d100 on the snafu chart and immediately applies the snafu result, which might not be noticed by the target player. Snafus are historical results such as a bad or lucky shot, jammed round, misfire, the gunner choked, etc. Step 4. Determine hit or miss. The shooting player rolls a d20 at the Step 2 accuracy range and first shot or 2+ shots row. If the result is equals the 1 to 19 hit number at the Step 2 range, go to Step 5. If it is a miss, go to Step 8. The 7 in the far left of the penetration row is the shell damage value, SDV, in Step 6. It is the weight of the armor-piercing shell, which can be added to the damage roll in Step 6. Step 5. Hit location, shell trap, and ricochets. Hit location and precision aim. If within the minimum range, the shooting player can modify the d20 hit location roll plus or -1 to 4 to avoid a ricochet, side scrape protection. Target a weak spot, or with a 20+ get a critical hit. Note the armor thickness for Step 6. Ricochet chance example, an armor value of 9010. The target player rolls a d20, -3 for heat rounds. If the result is 1 to 10, the round ricochets for no damage. Go to Step 8. Side scrape and hold down targets. The protection can generate a miss. Critical hit. The shooting player rolls a d20 on the target critical hit table. Step 6. Penetration level. The shooting player determines the armor penetration level, penetration minus armor, and rolls a d20 plus any modifier on the shell type row based on the armor penetration level. If the result is equals 0, the round ricochets. Go to step 8. To cause maximum damage, the round needs to overpenetrate the armor by 20 mm plus to completely enter the crew compartment. If the shell penetration is 5 millimeters, the armor or equals the thickness of the armor, the round did not penetrate but caused armor spalling damage on the inside of the compartment. Vehicles with wet ammo storage have their main gun ammo stored in a mixture of water and glycol, decreasing the chance of fire and explosion. The greater the internal damage, the less chance of crew survival. Step 7. Damage level. The results from Step 6 are no effect, morale check, bailout, fire, or brew up. If the result is a bailout, place a crew bailout marker on the vehicle and any enemy units, with a LOS can attempt to place a small arms fire marker. A successful morale check allows the player to bail out or attempt to move out of the enemy LOS. Morale failure means bailing out. If the result is a fire, place a fire and bailout marker. A brew up is an immediate catastrophic explosion. Place a brewed up and bailout marker. Morale check. If a crew fails a morale check, they can choose to bail out or move forward or reverse at top speed to the closest location that will put them out of the enemy LOS, no shooting or reacting aloud. Once safe, they automatically recover their good morale. Bailout attempt. Using the causality chart, the target player rolls a d20 with no modifiers using the percent determined by the damage from Step 7. If any of the crew survives, place a bailout marker. Enemy units can fire at the bailing crews. If the crew has survived, they move as infantry and can hunker down to be safe. Step 8. Loop back to observe. See page 25 for details. After determining the result of the shot, the shooting player immediately loops back to observe the results and determine his next action to shoot or move. Enemy units with a LOS to the shooting can now react with a situational awareness check. After shooting and reactions, start the clock ticking. How do snafus work? In combat, not everything goes according to plan and bad things normally happen at the worst time, like when you want to shoot. At the act turn to shoot, the target player rolls a d20 with no modifiers for a snafu check. A roll of 1 is a snafu, and the shooting player immediately rolls a d100, 2x d10, on the snafu chart and immediately applies the result. Some results are observed by the enemy and some are not. The historical results include jams, misfires, loader slipping, loading the wrong round type, gun malfunction, driver panics, etc. Players can make their own snafu charts or not use them in the game. How did you develop the gunfire action timing and accuracy values used in the game? I started with tank manuals, weapons testing results, research papers, and after-action reports. Since I was going to use an action timing, method for activation, and a gunnery formula for accuracy, there was not much I could borrow from other games. Turret traverse is what a manual states and tests, where I could find the data. Range estimation and aim time are different for the crew type, with poor crews taking additional time to get the gun on the target. First round accuracy uses a 20% range estimation error for veterans, 15% for aces, 25% for trained, and 35% for green crews in the accuracy formula. Reload times are taken from historical rates of fire, post-World War II trials of enemy equipment, plus a crew modification that can increase that time for poor crews and combat conditions. The biggest problem in gunnery is the range estimation for the first shot, which takes additional time for poor crews. The gunnery accuracy formula uses World War II ballistics, Armor and Gunnery, British War Office reports, Ballistics Research Lab, BRL, Army Research Lab, ARL, FM 17 to 12, Tiger Fible, Panther Fible, nationality trial fires, and ballistics tables for the error budget, information taking into account a variety of fixed, variable, and random error values that influence accuracy. The outcome compares favorably with test firing and after-action combat reports. What's the difference between first shot and 2+ shots fire control? The first shot will have about a 50% chance to hit at a range of 1 second time of flight because of range estimation errors by the crew. 2+ shots fire control models the elevation corrections a gunner makes after the first shot. It is more accurate because the range estimation error is pretty much eliminated. Moving fire always uses the first shot row. Rangefinders use the 2+ shot accuracy row rather than the first shot row. What are some of the factors that affect accuracy? The main one is the type of fire control, first shot or 2+ shots row on the gun chart. Moving targets are harder to hit. The faster they move at an angle and the further the range, the harder they are to hit. Shooting while moving is very inaccurate too. Better crews are more accurate. Other accuracy penalties are for shooting through a haze, rain, or snow, concealed targets, wounded gunner or commander, using a snapshot, and being at a lower elevation. There is an accuracy bonus for ace crews, elevation advantage, rangefinders, and known range. Shooting at a hold-down target does not have an accuracy penalty. When firing at a hold-down target, only the turret can be hit when you roll for the hit location. If a target is over 1 second of flight range, the round will arrive in the next turn, not the turn the unit fired. A tank with a 1 second time of flight of 800 m shoots at a tank at a range of 1000 m at 327. The round will be 200 m, 1/4 of a second, away at the end of 327. At 328, his opponent shoots before it impacts at 328, split-second result. How do the accuracy tactics work in the game? This is another aspect of making the game time competitive, allowing a player to decide his fate. The shooting player first shot, but not the 2+ shots, can use a snapshot to trade decreased accuracy for increased speed to seize the initiative to shoot first, with each second shooting sooner being a plus 100 m accuracy penalty. This simulates a tank crew using historical battle sight and burst-on-target fire control and aiming techniques. Rangefinders, known range, and range card tactics use the 2+ shots row on the gun chart, making it more accurate than a first shot, but a snapshot negates their advantages. How are the accuracy bonuses used? An accuracy bonus will allow you to use a closer range than the true target range when shooting. When firing a first shot, you can use a rangefinder, but it will take additional time. However, it allows you to use the 2+ shots fire accuracy row for the first shot. Defensive guns normally pre-measured the range to geographic locations like buildings or road junctions. This will eliminate the range estimation error for a first shot and allow the player to use the 2+ shots fire control accuracy. Once ranged in on a target, any new targets within 100 m of the previous target will use the 2+ shots accuracy row accuracy instead of the first shot accuracy row. How do the gunnery rules historically recreate World War II tank-tank engagements? Players are faced with the same decision as tank crewmen, speed versus accuracy. You can't have both. First, a threat must be reacted to with a situational awareness check. Next, engage the target by getting the gun on the target, estimating the range, aim, and fire. If using Overwatch with excellent situational awareness and a good crew, it can take only 3 to 5 seconds. With poor SA, poor weapons platform performance, and a poorly trained crew, it could take 15 to 20 seconds. To simulate that in the game, the player has the option of shooting sooner, but with an accuracy penalty. Accuracy penalties and bonuses are in 100m range increments. There are no calculations or die roll modifiers. The details are transparent and playable to the player because each gun has a pre-calculated customized gun chart for each ammo type chart. Example, a target at 900m has a step 2 accuracy penalty of plus 200m. Use the accuracy value for 1100m, but the penetration and time of flight info for 900m. How did you determine the modifiers for shooting at a moving target? It's from an equation developed by the British Army at Bovington. It considers the three main target variables: speed, angle aspect, and range/time of flight. The faster a target goes at a higher angle to the attacker, and the longer the range, time of flight, the harder it will be to hit. How does the hold fire and track tactic work? When your act time to shoot comes, you have the option to hold fire and continue to track your target. This will allow you to shoot in any future turn with no additional delay if the target is kept in your LOS and field of fire. It's a good tactic to use when concealed and you want to wait until the target comes within range, stops, or turns and presents a flank shot. It's also how ambushes are triggered. This tactic is normally used for anti-tank guns. For handheld anti-tank weapons, the shooter can be concealed and pop up to shoot. What factors determine the action timing to shoot? We use historical numbers and training videos when we can. Let's visualize what it takes to shoot. First, you need to load a round unless you already have one in the chamber. Depending on the vehicle, this could take 4 to 10 seconds or up to 25 seconds for 2-part 105mm plus ammo. It's best to go into battle with a round in the chamber. Next, you need to traverse your gun or pivot your hull onto the target. Historically, manual traverse can be from 4 to 8 degrees per second and motorized traverse from 6 to 35 degrees per second. Pivoting to engage is normally 10 to 15 degrees per second to make it easier for the gunner to acquire the target. Overwatch eliminates the traverse time. You can also engage a target while moving. Last is the gunner first shot aim time, which is a player decision and variable. Snapshot to trade accuracy for speed. It's all on a customized data card. How does the first shot aim action timing affect accuracy? Once the gun is on the target, the commander and gunner need to make fine adjustments and estimate the range and set the elevation. In the game, this is called aim time. Total aim time for maximum accuracy depends on optics, rangefinder use, crew type, gun size, and any limitations the gun may have. Maximum aim time accuracy can be from 4 seconds for small guns up to 12 seconds for larger guns with poor crews. Longer aim time produces a smaller shot dispersion, making it more accurate, just like in real shooting. If you've played any tank video games with the aiming circle over the target, you see the circle, representing the dispersion, getting smaller the longer you wait. The variable aim time in the game functions the same way. A player can choose a risk-reward of using less aim time, simulating the battle site, burst on target tactic, to shoot a few seconds sooner, but with a larger dispersion, trading accuracy for speed. Using the customized engagement play aid and data card takes only seconds. Speeding up the game. When there is no mutual LOS between opponents, I think it is best for both sides to secretly plot the movement and speed of their units. Then perform consecutive 10-second movement turns until a new mutual LOS is determined. Then gameplay reverts to second. This is the way a meeting engagement scenario is started. Sometimes a player will conceal or move all of his units out of the enemy LOS to allow time for an artillery barrage to arrive. As long as there is no mutual loss, both sides can plot movement and pause the game when artillery rounds impact and for simultaneous movement every 10th turn. Forward observers are concealed and cannot be spotted if they are more than 200 m away. Movement, maneuvering, moving fire, and bogging down. Why do you use movement markers? They give a visual representation of realistic movement rates. It allows a playable simultaneous movement to work and eliminates the need for additional opportunity fire rules and speeds up the game. The markers are set for 1 inch equals 25 m. The vehicle image on the marker is scaled correctly, giving a better visual representation of scale in the game. What is a movement segment? Each movement marker is divided into 10 equal movement segments, reflecting the rate of speed traveled each second. On one side is 1 to 9 in light gray, and on the other side is 1 to 9 tan. The different colors coordinate movement segments. When a movement marker is placed by a static unit that wants to start moving, the model/counter should be placed on the movement segment that matches the current game turn in 1 to 9 second segments. When a moving unit halts, it should be moved to the current 1 to 9 second segment and then remove the marker. The unit is now static and can engage a target with halt fire. How do vehicles maneuver? In each game's turn of movement, the player can pause the game to turn or pivot his moving units up to their maximum rate, as shown on the data card. When turning, turn the entire movement marker to face the new direction of movement. Static units can pivot up to their maximum degrees/second. How are maximum speeds determined? For colored speed bands on the data card show the maximum speed the vehicle can travel over that type of terrain. When a moving unit moves into a new terrain type, it changes speed. Use the appropriate marker. Brown is for urban and broken terrain. Tan for rolling terrain. Light green for flat and dark green for roads. What is virtual movement and how does it work? To realistically simulate simultaneous movement, players would need to move each moving unit less than an inch for each 1 second turn. This is not playable. To solve that problem, the game uses movement markers to show the speed, direction, and distance the unit virtually moves along the marker. As each second on the clock ticks off, the vehicle virtually advances to the next 1 to 9 segment on the marker. How does physical movement work? Every 10th turn is the simultaneous physical movement phase. All units with a virtual movement marker are physically moved to the end of the marker, and it is flipped to the other colored side and placed in front of the model to show movement for the next 10 turns. How does physical movement work? Using virtual movement, the models eventually need to be moved by the players. Every 10th turn, all units with a movement marker are simultaneously moved to the end of the movement marker, and the marker is placed to show the new speed and direction of movement for the next 10 seconds of movement segment. How does moving fire work? Engage the target by turning and/or traversing the turret. Then determine the first shot action timing and act time. After engaged, any turns will lose the target. Always use the first shot row on the gun chart. How does opportunity fire work? The short answer is natural and intuitive without additional rules or limitations as in other games. The image to the left shows a unit moving into the enemy LOS at a game time of 2:33. At that time, both units react with a mutual situational awareness check. The stationary unit, in Overwatch and Observing, will have the moving German target in his LOS for 6 seconds until 2:38. If his engagement and action timing to shoot is 6 seconds, he'll need to conduct a snapshot with an accuracy penalty or his target will disappear from his line of sight behind the trees at 2:39. How does vehicle deceleration and halt work? Deceleration time to halt is 1 second per 10 kilometers per hour rounded up. At a game time of 4:33 a.m., vehicle moving at 25 kilometers per hour takes 3 seconds. His act time to halt is 4:36. While decelerating, he cannot shoot any guns or react, but can maneuver to engage a new target with halt fire and or to angle armor if it has a turret. At 4:3, he moves the model to the current movement segment 6 on his movement marker and then removes it. How do units become bogged down? When a moving unit first enters a poor/soft terrain type, it rolls for a chance to bog down based on its flotation rating and crew type. If it passes, it can continue to move with no further checks, but will have to slow down, replace movement marker. If it fails, it can try again, but may become bogged down. Customized unit data card. The QR code will give a short video explanation that can be used mid-game rather than looking up the rules. The unit type is an American Sherman M4A3 with a 76mm gun. There's a 3-view image of the tank. Description: tank, blind spot when engaged and can angle armor. Target size: smaller targets are A+, larger, weights 33 tons, has a crew of 5, has a turret basket, 3-man turret, gunner, loader, and commander. Cupola for better situational awareness. The green hammer and wrench show the reliability rating. Flotation is chance of getting bogged down. Has a coaxial, CMG, and bow machine gun, BMG. The heavy machine gun has 360 degrees field of fire, HMG bolded, and is fired by the tank commander. Target engagement. Just as in real combat, you can't shoot at something unless your gun is pointed at it. After a situational awareness check and any engagement delay, the player can engage a new target by maneuver or traversing the turret each turn, but not both in the same turn. Each vehicle has a turn/pivot and turret traverse speed per second as shown above. This means your models need to have traversing turrets or an indicator to where it is pointing. The symbol means you round up the values. Traversing 90 degrees is 4 seconds at 25 degrees per second. Once the gun is on target, roll a d6 with modifiers for your first shot aim action timing and act time to shoot and record it. Angle armor. Turreted tanks can maneuver to put their target in their 20 to 60 degrees hull arc and then traverse the turret to the target. This will take a few seconds longer, but will increase your front, side armor thickness and give a better chance to get ricochet. Action timing to shoot and risk-reward tactics. The above image shows the part American Sherman M4A3 76 W data card for action timing values TAN for the first shot aim time after getting the gun on the target and 2+ shots reload time, multiple shots at the same target and known range, and modifiers. This is where the player will focus when shooting. The D6 means the shooting player rolls a D6 shown in blue numbers. A D6 means the target player rolls. The symbol means the Sherman has a gun stabilizer that only ace and veteran crews can use for halt and moving fire. The is for a rangefinder which takes +6 additional seconds to use. The +/ modifiers modify the D6 timing result and not the D6 roll. Example, at a game time of 2:21, the Sherman player with a veteran crew halts and immediately, during the same turn, performs a halt fire. His D6 roll is a 5 for a result of 6 seconds with a -2 modifier for the gun stabilizer and a +2 for being buttoned up for a result of 6 seconds with an act time of 2:27, 2:21 + 6, which is secretly recorded. Snapshot. This is a risk-reward tactical decision for the player to shoot sooner, but with an accuracy penalty of +100 per second sooner. He can decide to shoot now with a +600 m accuracy penalty, at 2:22 with a +500 m accuracy penalty, etc. A snapshot eliminates the precision aim and rangefinder tactic. Precision aim. If the shooter is static and target static or moving within 10 degrees of the gun, an ace or veteran crew can modify the D20 hit location die roll plus or -4 within the maximum range, green, on the gun chart. This is normally 400 m to 600 m. This allows the shooting player to target a weak spot, avoid a ricochet, or on a 20+ result roll on the target critical hit table. A snapshot eliminates the precision aim tactic. Rangefinder. Vehicles using a rangefinder must take an additional +6 turns to use it for the first shot only. A rangefinder allows the ace and veteran crews to use the more accurate 2+ shot row on the gun chart rather than the first shot row. A snapshot negates the rangefinder tactic advantage. Simplified action timing. Rather than rolling a d6 to determine the variable action timing for a first shot aim time or 2+ shots reload time, the players can use set a set value that is the average for each one. This could speed up the action in larger games, but is going to be more predictable for the enemy. Armor, hit location, ricochets, and damage. How are armor values determined, and what sources did you use? I've tried to get the best sources available, which can be a problem for some vehicle models. I took the base armor thickness and used a compound angle, vertical and horizontal angles, calculation for 4 different target aspects. Cast and flawed armor values are 10 to 15% less than listed. What types of armor are used in the game? Cast armor, RHA, brittle armor, skirt armor, poor quality, shot traps. The differences will be built into the armor thickness on the data card. However, there are no armor modifiers or angle calculations for the player to make. How is the level of damage determined? A D20 roll plus the shell damage value, based on the weight of the shell, and any heat charge, based on the penetration level determines the level of damage. No effect, delay, morale check, fire, explosion. Flank and rear hits are more vulnerable. Brittle armor will cause more splintering and penetration damage. Skirt armor will stop anti-tank rifle fire. No tank, no matter what its armor protection, is totally safe. A damage result of a suppression delay is from a partial penetration/spalling that disrupts the crew and may cause light wounds that will affect their performance. Armor must be over-penetrated by 20 mm plus for the round to cause maximum damage, so penetration and damage are somewhat variable. A suppression delay will increase the current act time for a crew to perform an action and decrease their situational awareness. It will also prevent them from responding to new threats. Suppression delays are cumulative and may force a unit to fall back. Some types of projectiles will perform better against some types and worse against others. Engines, transmissions, fuel tanks, and ammo storage areas are modeled in the advanced game. How are critical hits determined in the game? A D20 hit location die roll of a 20+, including the plus or -4 precision aim modifier, is always a critical hit. However, precision aim needs the shooter and target to be static, and there is a maximum range of about 1 second time of flight. Roll a d20 again on the critical hit table to determine the result. No target is immune. Above is the customized critical hit table for the Sherman M4A3 76W. What defensive measures can a target take? Moving at high speed and an angle greater than 45 degrees to the shooter will make it harder to hit. Vehicles can move to hold-down positions, protecting their hull from being hit, or to peek around a building to shoot, hiding half of their vehicle, side scrape, with a 50% chance to miss. A shooter can use a reverse slope defense to observe, move from turret down to hold down, shoot, and then move back to turret down protection while reloading for the next shot. This will leave him exposed for only a few seconds, making it hard to engage. Infantry and weapons crews can hunker down to be immune to direct small arms fire. How is the critical hit chart designed? We looked at historically what types of damage were done, especially some of the rare types of damage like shot traps, weak spots, brittle armor spalling, and poor casting, turret ring jams, fire, suspension, and track damage, vision ports, non-penetrating spalling damage, and cupola hits. The critical hit chart means no target is safe from attacks, and there is also a small chance a round may not perform up to expectations. What determines a ricochet? We analyzed hit locations to determine their compound armor angle, vertical and horizontal angle, to determine if it is greater than 60 degrees and could generate a potential ricochet. Rounded armor and areas with a compound angle over 60 degrees may ricochet. Shot traps are portrayed as weak spots. Hit location armor values with a subscript #X806 have a ricochet chance. When the shooting player rolls a d20 for the hit location, the target player rolls a d20 for the ricochet chance. If the target player's d20 result is equals the subscript #X ricochet chance, the round bounces for no damage. How do shot traps work? Historically, tanks that had angled or rounded frontal mantlet armor surfaces, a round could ricochet off the bottom of the turret and hit the weak hull roof armor. These locations have a subscript to the left of the armor value, 680. Shot traps can be targeted with the precision aim tactic with a plus or -4 to the d20 hit location die roll. A hit in a shot trap penetrates the hull roof armor, 10 to 20 millimeters armor, and the crew bails out. Play the loop, loop back, and issue your next order. This is the biggest difference from IGYG games with an orders phase or unit activation. Immediately, during the same turn a player shoots, he loops back to observe the result of his shot, consider his options and tactics, decides on an order, and determines his next act time it will execute. Then enemy units react. We call this playing the loop. Overwatch. This is the default order. If there are no new targets and you don't want to move, you can maneuver or traverse your turret to overwatch a new location or keep it the same without an SA check. Limited intelligence. Realistically, you are not aware of the level of target damage unless you see a fire, brew up, or the crew is bailing out. That means you must shoot one or more times at the same target with the main gun until you see the result, or if within range, engage the bailing crew with machine guns or HE. Engage new target. If your target is on fire, brewed up, or the crew is bailing out, you are no longer engaged or have a 180 degrees rear blind spot. Perform a situational awareness check. After any engagement delay, get your gun on the target and determine your first shot aim action timing and act time to shoot. Known range. After shooting 1 or 2 rounds at a target, your gun is ranged in for that range and any target within 100 m. If you engage a new target that is within 100 m of your previous target, perform a situational awareness check, and after any engagement delay, use the 2+ shots reload action timing and record your new act time to shoot. Use the 2+ shot row on the gun chart, not the first shot row. Shoot and scoot immediately. During the same turn after shooting, place a virtual speed marker with the unit on the 1 to 9 segment matching the current game clock. There is no situational awareness check needed. If you anticipate new targets, go into Overwatch. If not, move out and go hunting for new meat. Halt. Moving units takes time to decelerate to a halt. The halt action timing is 1 second per 10 km/h rounded up. While decelerating, the unit cannot perform a situational awareness check, traverse turret, or shoot any gun, but it can turn to get the gun on target to execute a halt fire or angle armor if it has a turret. Immediately after halting, determine your first shot action timing, halt fire modifier, and act time. Mutual LOS reaction. All friendly and enemy units can now react and perform a situational awareness check to enemy activity in their LOS, and not in their 180 degrees blind spot. They can cancel and issue a new order. They can also shoot and scoot, snap shoot and play the loop, or snap shoot and scoot. Restart the game. After all of the shooting, playing the loop, snapshots, and reacting, the game clock starts ticking again until a player pauses the game to react, maneuver, execute an order, or the next administration phase. Combined arms, artillery, and air support. How will the air support rule work? Bombs and rockets will have an act time depending on their time of flight once dropped or fired. Anti-aircraft fire is performed in the same way as direct fire, synchronizing the target aircraft's movement rate with the anti-aircraft gun rate of fire. Slower-moving aircraft like Sturmovix will be able to stay on the playing surface and maneuver for multiple attacks while being engaged by ground-based anti-aircraft guns. They will be a flying tank and have hit location roles like vehicles. How will indirect fire artillery and mortar fire rules work? Indirect fire artillery and mortar rounds will have their own act time to impact based on their time of flight from where they are fired. This will make calling an artillery on moving targets difficult. There can be an additional delay based on the forward observer radio communications for spotting and round adjustments. Example, a barrage fired at a game time of 3:27 with a 20-second time of flight lands at 3:47. Combined arms, infantry, and small arms fire rules. How will the infantry rules work? Different. Very different. My military background includes a squad leader in a Marine rifle company in the Vienne era. Our TONE and tactics and weapons were pretty much World War II stuff, including flamethrowers and mortars. I carried an M14 more than an M16. I was part of the Aggressor Force training new 2nd LTs as they went through their basic school platoon leader course. The infantry rules will use fire team/section level units. Units will have a tactical competence rating that leadership can increase. Small arms fire will be simultaneous, and the volume of fire results will be determined every 10 turns/seconds, with 1 die roll speeding up the game. Small arms, machine guns, grenades, explosives, mines, and handheld anti-tank weapons will be included with their detailed data card. What will the scale be? Units will be fire and weapons teams of 2 to 6 men and individual leaders, platoon leader, platoon sergeant, and squad leader. Most of the games and play testing have been with 28mm figures with 1 inch equals 2 meters. With 6mm or 10mm scale 1 inch equals 5 meters seems to work well. How will movement work? The same way as with vehicles, with some additions. Units will normally obey orders without a problem when not under fire. They need to pass an aggressiveness check to move under fire. Leaders can help. When a unit comes under fire or ambushed, they react immediately with an immediate action drill. The player can have them fall back out of enemy LOS, no shooting or reacting, hit the deck to seek cover, improved position, and return fire, or hunker down immune to small arms fire, but cannot return fire. To advance under fire or assault the enemy, the unit must pass an aggressiveness check. If they fail, they must hit the deck where they are and hunker down. Formations. Overwatch is the default formation order with no blind spot. Ideally, players should put their teams in a skirmish line, column, or echelon formation. Formations determine their situational awareness and effectiveness when returning fire in the first phase of a firefight. Foot speeds are 5 to 6 kilometers per hour sprint for a short period and team rushes. For kilometers per hour in a column for an extended period not under fire, 3 kilometers per hour tactical and patrolling. Foot unit postures. Infantry units are assigned a posture and able to perform immediate action drills to respond to enemy fire, seek cover, and ambushes. Postures are moving, tactical, march, crawl, sprint, hunkered down, fall back, or improved position on the deck seeking available cover, which will determine their ability to shoot or use cover. Moving infantry units will use movement markers the same way as vehicles. Conducting fire and movement. A squad needs to coordinate fire and movement with a suppressive fire and maneuver/assault element. The maneuver/assault element starts hunkered down, hidden, and not shooting so they won't be under enemy fire. When the objective is suppressed enough, the maneuver/assault element, normally just 1 to 4 men as smaller teams have a better chance, will automatically move out when ordered because they will not be under fire, so no aggressiveness check. Since the enemy is suppressed, it will take them longer to react and engage the maneuver/assault element, especially if they are being flanked or in a pillbox or bunker. A successful flamethrower, smoke, or WP grenade result suppresses the objective to be close assaulted with grenades, satchel charges, etc. Aggressiveness check. They will have to pass an aggressiveness check, which can be modified by their leader to advance under fire. How will suppression work? I like the definition of suppression as degrading your unit's ability to observe, communicate, shoot, and move. I think it is a good recreation of friction where everything takes longer, can go wrong, lose the initiative, and you will be less effective overall. You can recreate that pretty well in a time competitive game environment. Anti-tank guns under fire will have their action timing to shoot and reload doubled. A unit in a sustained firefight is suppressed and has their firepower % hit chance at 50% rounded up. Units perform best when not being fired at. Conducting small arms fire and firefights. Once enemy units are involved in a sustained firefight, all shooting is assumed to be simultaneous, no IGYG or initiative, and the results determined every 10 turns using the causality chart QRC. Units in a firefight are assumed to be in an improved position, which means they are taking advantage of available cover, but still observing and shooting. Some weapons, mostly semi and automatic, can split their firepower % to engage multiple targets. If needed, results can be determined in 5-second increments using 50% of the firepower. Each team will have a data card with all of the info and weapons loadout. Units locked in a firefight will have a situational awareness delay penalty. Suppression will be modeled as a suppression delay, like an engagement delay, which will decrease a suppressed unit's ability to observe, shoot, move, communicate, and respond to enemy movement and shoot anti-tank weapons. The use of suppression fire and delays will enable historic fire and maneuver actions to take place if the player coordinates them correctly. Cover saves. The first question is, why are you using cover saves? The short answer is because it is more playable than going through many die roll modifiers, and the defending player gets to roll the cover save. The effectiveness of small arms fire is measured against a standing target in the open. Cover has a rating of 1 to 9 defined by how much of the target is hidden when being fired at. When a defender is hit, the defending player rolls a d10, sometimes with a modifier for the weapon firing. When an infantry unit is hit, the defending player rolls a d10 for a cover save. Why a cover save? Cover is determined by how much of the target is exposed to be hit. A unit with 50% cover saves on a 1 to 5 result and is a casualty on a 6 to 10. A defender that fails a cover save is a causality. A defender that passes a cover save is hunkered down, meaning he has taken himself out of the fight by ducking down or relocating and will not be available to shoot until he rallies by passing an aggressiveness check in the administration phase. Hunkered down units are safe from direct small arms fire, so they cannot be targeted. We've found the result of this is that units end up getting most of their guys hunkered down rather than eliminated, which I think is a more historic result in a firefight where both sides have good cover. If you have a 3 to 1 firepower superiority, that can happen fairly quickly. Falling back. If the player sees he's on the losing end of a sustained firefight and will shortly be assaulted, he can order the entire unit to fall back, which is automatically obeyed. The unit must move at top speed away from the enemy to the nearest location to be out of the enemy's LOS without reacting or shooting. Once safe, they automatically recover. As the defending player, make sure your defenders have a clear and safe path to egress to an alternate defensive position. Popping smoke can help cover you. Fallback orders to rally are automatically obeyed, and rallying is carried out after they are out of the enemy LOS and not under fire. Morale checks. I'm not really sure how morale will work. I think that after a % of losses, the unit will be unable to advance until reinforced and will be harder to rally, but can still defend normally. This will force them to fall back more often to stay alive. Leaders. All leaders have a rating that they can add to the unit they are ordering for an aggressiveness check and when rallying. Leaders do not normally take part in sustained firefights. The job of the squad leader is to observe and direct his 2 teams, not to assist in adding to their firepower except in an emergency, final assault, ambush, etc. This means they will be immune to direct small arms fire in most situations. Losing the squad leader will make it harder to rally pinned down troops and will reduce their tactical competence. A leader can add their rating to their unit's aggressiveness to get them to move under fire. Whenever a leader uses his modifier, he has exposed himself to the enemy and will have a 5% chance of becoming a casualty and 10% if there is a sniper with a clear LOS, so use them wisely. There will be specific characteristics that some of these leaders will have enabling them to perform activities and motivate their units in somewhat of a role-playing aspect. You can model leaders to match your favorite historical or fictional ones. This is a WP. Additional information and rules. Common sense. No game system can cover every situation that can occur in battle. When a question arises or there is an anomaly, players should look to what makes sense and historically occurred. Historically, tanks did not traverse their turret at the same time as they turned or pivoted. In the game, when pausing to maneuver, they cannot traverse their turret until the next 1-second turn. Situations not covered in the game. If a situation occurs in the game where there is a question about a tactic or an action that a unit wants to perform, players should look to historically how it occurred or check the manuals. They can then assign an action timing value to the order, maneuver, and determine the result of an action. Defender advantage. If there is a question about a situation or action, I give the advantage to the defender, but players can make their own decision or do a roll-off as in other games. Simultaneous actions. There will most likely be situations where two units are shooting at each other with the same act time. Unlike other games, the shooting does occur in the same turn with no additional rules. Round time of flight. The gun charts have the time of flight range indicated. If a gun with a 1-second time of flight of 700 m fires at a game time of 321 at a target over 900 m, the round will be 200 m from the target at the end of the turn and arrive on the next turn at 322. This means if the target was going to fire at 322, it will still shoot before the round impacts. This is an example of the game generating split-second combat results without needing additional rules or game mechanics. Simplified action timing. Rather than rolling a d6 to determine the variable action timing for a first shot or 2+ shots, reload, the players can set an average value for each one. This could speed up the action in larger games, but is going to be more predictable for the enemy. QR codes. The game's play aids and data cards are designed to bring new players up to speed without the need to intensely study and memorize the rules. The data cards and play aids will have a QR code that players can scan with their cell phone at any time to bring up a short video explanation of the rules. Rulebook. There will be quick start rules included in each game along with designer notes and frequently asked questions. The main rulebook will be a set of living rules available free online. However, without the other play aids and data card, the game cannot be played. I feel that detailed rules are a long-term work in progress and continually updated, so making them available will enable everyone to contribute. Custom virtual movement markers. The game can be played with any scale models. The ones supplied are for 1 inch equals 25 m, which works well up to 12 mm models. For 15 mm models, I'd suggest a scale of 2 inch equals 25 m. For 28 mm infantry battles, we normally play 1 inch equals 2 m, 5 m. How much bookkeeping is involved? That depends on the level of detail and what the players need to track. At a minimum, you need to track the act time a unit will act to execute an order, shoot, or when an engagement delay is over. Crew types have different variables for timing and accuracy, but the game is set up in such a way that the veteran crews have no modifiers. If there are going to be different crew level training that needs to be recorded for each unit, the ammo type, AP, APC, APCR, heat smoke, WP, may need to be recorded. Units should have their gun/turret pointed at their target, and the target ID should be recorded if it is not clear. Buttoned up and unbuttoned and suppression crew status should be tracked if it is not visible on the unit. We do have different forms for players to use, but some players track this info on a 3x5 index card, using some type of shorthand to keep track of various actions and unit status. Older and more experienced players need to forget everything they learned from playing other game systems. How is the game balanced? All I can say is that the game is based on historical actions, tactics, and timing. There are no abstractions or special rules to balance the game. Why? I wanted the game to be historical first and game second. Historically, real combat was not fair and balanced. You attacked when you had a tactical advantage or advantage in numbers like 3+1 against the enemy. However, through play testing and experimentation, We've found that games can be balanced and playable by giving the attacker and defender historical advantages and disadvantages. Balanced or not, the nuances and differences in performance will be more historically portrayed than most games. You can use any scenarios from your other game collection too. Why would an experienced gamer want to play a game that is so different? I've played traditional IGYG and activation games for years. The biggest difference is that rather than the action being parsed using the game rules with few player decisions, the action unfolds more realistically second to second as it would on the battlefield. This forces you to visualize and predict enemy activity. Combat is not entirely chaos. There is some prediction. In real combat, you can predict where a moving unit will be within a short period and decide how to engage it. The same thing happens in the game. There is also prediction of when a unit will shoot based on past experience or knowledge, because units perform their actions based on historical performance, not arbitrary rules. Real historical knowledge is a help. Units are always active and observing, ready to react to enemy actions. This means you do not sit helplessly as your opponent moves and shoots at you, and you're not waiting for your turn to shoot or move. Initiative is not random. You seize the initiative using historical tactics and maneuvers with little being left to chance. Players make the same risk-reward tactical decisions as real crews did to shoot first. The gun accuracy system is based on a formula used by the U.S. Ballistics Research Laboratory to determine the mean point of impact of a round. There are no computations for the player. There is an accuracy row in 100 m range increments for the first shot, ranging shot, and the more accurate 2+ shots at the same target, bracketing / ranged in. There is no modifier for the D20 die roll. Accuracy penalties are in +100 m range increments, harder to hit. Accuracy bonuses are in -100 m range increments, easier to hit. The hit location rules cover multiple turret and hull hit locations from 4 different target aspects. The shooting player rolls a d20 with a plus or -4 modifier if he qualifies for the precision aim. The damage level depends on the penetration level and the round weight. Each hit location has a potential chance for the round to ricochet, and some have a shot trap. The armor type, quality, and vertical and horizontal angles with no computations for the player determine armor thickness for each target aspect. How thoroughly has the game been tested? Testing for the last 7+ years has been mostly with new players to test different scenarios, rules, record keeping, and data card designs. Most of the effort has gone into the data cards, simple, intuitive, and realistic rules that make the game easy for new players with a minimum of memorization. Below is a testing session with a 14 and 16-year-old that never played a war game before controlling 10 tanks each. After about 45 minutes, they were pretty much on their own. The rules and gameplay are intuitive, but it can take some time to get used to navigating the data cards and play aids. So, are you smarter than a 14-year-old? Notice that the only markers on the table are the virtual movement markers showing the speed and direction of movement every 10 seconds, because that is what you would see on the battlefield. This makes it easy to visualize where a moving unit will be in the next 10 to 20 seconds. There are other information markers for actions that would be seen, like crew bailing out, hull/turret down units, smoke, fires, small arms fire markers, and bogged down vehicles. You can also see the data cards and game clock to keep track of the turns and order markers. How will post-World War II weapons be used in the game? They'll use the same Hodier decision loop and action timing system using the manuals, after-action reports, and data from post-war reports. since anti-tank guided weapons are fairly slow, moving about 150 m to 300 m per second, taking up to 10 to 15 seconds to travel 3,000 m could be spotted in time to counter them. If spotted soon enough, vehicles can attempt to dodge out of the LOS, pop smoke, evade, or fire at the missile and operator. The use of artillery or air-delivered bomblets and mines will severely impact mobile operations. Small arms fire will have longer ranges and be more accurate. Smart weapons will be more deadly too. Enhanced fire control systems, fin-stabilized penetrators, and composite armor will be included. Historical research and references used in game development. Below are some of the resources I've used in developing the game. Because the time competitive design approach is so different, there was not much I could borrow from other game systems. I've had help from former tank crewmen, some who have had some experience with World War II vehicles, docents, and drivers/mechanics from the US, England, and Russia tank and vehicle museums. Most playtesting in the last 7 years has been at gaming conventions with new players. The game's main design goal is to streamline gameplay to make it intuitive and easy for beginners. The QR code to the left shows in-game examples of reactions and situational awareness checks, virtual and physical movement, target engagement, shooting, and playing the loop.
Okay, well, that was quite a mouthful. So there's actually no QR code on there. We're going to take that out. That's being used on something else. So that's the long version. Pretty much includes a lot of things. I mainly put this together so potential players could jump around and answer specific questions. But if you want to watch it in an entire video, you've got that now. Thank you.